Welcome to the Bear Sheep broadcast, where we talk about building stability, preserving legacy, and strengthening the communities we call home. I'm Khaliyah Barakhyahu, founder and president of Bear Sheet, a 501c3 nonprofit here in the Richmond area, and I'm honored you're spending this time with us. This show is a safe space for real conversations about homeownership, financial well being, life decisions, and the choices that shape our family's future. Our mission is simple. We empower families to build lasting stability by providing holistic education and compassionate support in homeownership, wealth building, and end of life planning. I'm very excited today. I have Betty Ivey here with us today, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about what parents need to know, they need to what matters to them. And many times, parents, we don't need to do more. We just need to know what matters. Now, I told Betty when we got on here, I may go off script. So I met Betty at a SAGE convention, and I was really impressed by Betty because she has children. She's been in the school system for many years, which she's going to talk about. And she had a program that was really out there for us parents. I have 3 children. I homeschool. I've been in the school system. And Betty has had so much information that she wants to share with everyone so that we can make better decisions. We can help empower our children. And we all know in this day and age with so much going on, helping our children feel empowered and ready to go into the school system confidently is very important. So let me get back on script. My guest today has spent 20 years as an educator, working across 30 states as a teacher, a leader, and a school partner. But it wasn't until she went through school enrollment as a parent herself that she realized how hard it is to know what actually matters, even for someone with her background. She's the founder of Ask Miss Ivey, which I'm so excited to talk about today, where her philosophy is simple. Parents don't need to do more. They need to know what matters. So let's get into it. All right, Betty, tell us a little bit. I'm so glad to have you here with us today.
Hi, Khaliyah. Thanks so much. I'm delighted to be here. And so, the first thing that I want to talk about is that school looks very different than when most parents were kids. The
Yes.
tests, the teaching, and especially the expectations for parent engagement and support. And so, parents like us we carry this low grade constant anxiety like, is my child on track? Am I doing enough to support? And what do these test scores mean? And that anxiety, it's not irrational, right? It's not that parents don't lack information. We're like drowning in it. There's so much information about what we should be doing that it's overwhelming. And what's missing is a reliable way to figure out, well, what to do with it and how to know the difference between what's a myth, what's the truth, and essentially what's best for my kid and my family, because that looks different. And as parents, we get the choice to choose between these. And so I've been in the schools for the past 20 years, and they are doing complicated, hard work every day. I had a parent who volunteered with me at my daughter's daycare, and after an hour, she was like, I am ready to go because it is a lot of work. But the piece that's missing is what happens at school and how to connect it to what's happening at home. And basically, I took what I learned in schools across the country into something called No More Guessing, what the research says about school and what you can do at home. So parents know how to translate and identify practical, actionable bite-sized steps that they can do immediately that are best for them and their kids.
Okay, so I appreciate that. Now, when we first met, one of the things that you were talking about was Ask Miss Ivy. And you mentioned a lot of things, and I know parents that are listening, they're like, yes, we need this. We need more information. We need, but how do we get it? So I was really impressed by Ask Miss Ivy. So can you tell us a little bit about what Ask Miss Ivy is, how you started it, and how we can benefit from that?
Absolutely. So I've been in every aspect of school life. I taught in schools, I was an administrator, I coached school leaders and district leaders. I've partnered with state departments of education. But it wasn't until I became a parent 6 years ago that everything changed. And if you're a parent, if you know, you know. I was researching school options and I began the process of enrolling my son. And I was struck by how complicated the process was. The links didn't work. The information was conflicting. I needed a parent ID and a student ID, but I couldn't get it to log into the account. The timelines didn't make sense or match up. And I thought to myself, wait, if I'm an expert and this is what I know extremely well and I can't navigate this, well, can you imagine folks who have zero background in education or families like mine growing up where we had limited resources? How are they supposed to identify and find the best fit for their kid? And that's when I thought of Ask Miss Ivy. So it's a trusted space where parents can ask all of their questions in regards to education. When you have health questions, you go to a doctor. When you have finance questions, you have an accountant, you have lawyers. But where do parents go to ask questions with their kids and about their kids' learning? And so I want to make sure that there's a space where they can ask questions about school choice, supporting academics, selecting extracurriculars, screen time. Parents are making all these high stake decisions constantly, but do they really know what matters? And that is what Ask Miss Ivy is set out to do, to support parents to make sure they have that guidance so they can make the best decisions for themselves and their kids.
When we talked, and one of the things that you brought up, which I didn't really think about, is how years ago, maybe 10 years now ago, parents would tell their kids, go play outside,
Mhm.
go go look in the backyard, go look in the woods, go play outside, go forage, go do things like that. And then now our children, they don't, many of them don't want to do that. They want to get on the computer. My children know how to navigate the chat GPT. Like, there's so much going on. How has that affected our children, and what do you recommend in that case for our children?
I love this question. I have an intro to No More Guessing. It's called The Parent Advantage: Why You Matter Most. And the number one thing I want parents to understand is that parenting in American culture has shifted over the last 30 to 40 years. When most of us grew up, we did exactly that. Go outside and play. Come back before the street lights, turn on. Um, Problem solve, figure it out. We move from that end of the continuum all the way to where we are now, where as parents, we fully curate the entire experience for our kids: who they hang out with, what they do, how they do it, when they do it. And research actually shows how there has been a decline in independence and problem solving. We've moved into this intensive parenting, gentle parenting phase where we're just doing more for our kids. We also had a set of data that showed the number of touch points and quality time that parents spend with their kids has drastically increased over the last 30, 40 years. But within that, regulations have also changed. Things that were acceptable 30 to 40 years ago are not now. And two examples I want to name would be things like car seats, where I did not have a car seat, 30, 40 years ago, but now that's part of, legislation. And then another one is like child supervision. It was socially acceptable and okay for a 10-year-old to be at home. You couldn't do that now. And now, it's summertime. Parents are trying to figure out this massive puzzle piece of where's my kid going to go to camp? And again, you'll see most moms or many moms are full-time working moms. Well, that wasn't the norm 30, 40 years ago. So knowing this is helpful because you are basically saying, wow, no wonder why I feel overwhelmed, because it went from parents could decide how they wanted to supervise and raise their kid to mandates where there's certain things now that they must abide by. But knowing that the culture has changed helps us take a step back and say, I don't need to do more. And that is not what Ask Miss Ivy is about. I am overwhelmed already as a parent. My kids are 6 and 3, but I do want to know, with the time that I have, how do I decipher and choose one or two things that are going to be most beneficial for my child as it relates to school, learning, but essentially to thrive in life?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I know there's so many questions, as you were talking, and when I remember being on the teaching side of things, parents had questions, and I did my best to answer them, but they had so many questions about how to help their children, even how to help your children relate to other students,
Mhm.
because nowadays that seems to be an issue too, how people are relating, not even just on a elementary school level, but a middle school and a high school level. How are we creating friendships? How do we keep them? And as a parent, how do we help our child fit in? And maybe that's too much to ask, but if you have anything you can lend to that, because I hear so many things from students, because my children are in college, or my
Mhm.
older ones are, and then from other who have younger parents. And some of the things they say is, my child doesn't completely fit in.
Mhm.
They're not developing and making these really solid friendships. And is there anything I need to do as a parent to help them?
I love this. So this is a twofold question. The first one I'm going to talk about is fit and belonging. I have a module called The Right School. How do you know? Most parents, all parents want what's best for our kids. Most parents want their kids to go to schools that do academically well and that have great reputations. And of course you do, because you want the best for your child. But what research shows us is actually what is most beneficial for a kid is to find a school where they belong, where they feel loved and cared for. And it doesn't mean that means it doesn't have great academic results, proficiency, or growth. It means at the minimum, at the core, finding a place where they feel like they are loved, cared for, and they belong. And that's what I mean by fit. And so if you want to learn more about that, that's going to be The Right School, How to Know. The second thing you named is probably the question I hear most from parents besides test scores. It's a module called Beyond IQ, what really matters. And what's fascinating about this, and there's been so much research about it, is how IQ alone is not the strongest predictor of positive life outcomes. And when I say positive life outcomes, it's for adults to thrive on their own. And that's going to include obviously like financial, career, health, kind of that whole bucket. Well, then what is? Well, the answer is these character and life skills that you just named. What we see and what we know is when kids develop and practice grit, resiliency, problem solving, independence, building relationships, self regulating as at an early age, how those are the actual things that will support them in thriving as adult. Now let's take a step back. Let's talk about as parents, and you have kids in college. They're with us for what, 18 years? And then they go and if you decide that college is right, because again, college isn't for everyone, but if you choose that's what you would like you and your family and your kid to do, let's say they go to college when they're 18 years old, they now have to lead their life without you essentially. And then you will see that though we have the highest college acceptance rates, we have one of the lowest college completion rates. And when we use that measure, we're talking about 6 years, not the four, because getting into college is one goal, but graduating is another,
Right.
and life after college is another. And so the things that I talk about in No More Guessing set them up for success to thrive in life with college, without college, whatever you decide. But the goal is, how do you teach those skills to kids when they're younger? And the thing I want to name is, it sounds really overwhelming, like, oh my goodness, on top of everything that I have to do, be an Uber driver, a chef, and I have to curate all these experiences, now I have to teach them. Well, here's the thing. My job and what we aim for Ask Miss Ivy is to tell you, hey, this is what matters, and all in these 10 big buckets. You can choose and decide how and what you want to focus on. And I want to give a real life example. My son Trey is 6 years old. He's going into the second grade. And this year was the year of resiliency. And what I mean by that is we set a goal. He is into robotics and he likes to build little robots. But he
Okay.
was getting really frustrated not getting the wires set up, or he would try some coding and the robot wouldn't do what he wanted it to do, and he would get frustrated. He was shut down. Well, I want to tell parents that's normal. He's 6. He's doing something very, very hard and trying to figure it out. And I want him to push through. But me as an adult wanting him to push through doesn't actually help him push through. I have to figure out and sit through and say, Hey, how are you feeling right now?
Very good.
We need to take a break. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that we could do? And to get him to understand that it's okay to fail, it's okay to make mistakes. So in this environment, I am practicing with just again a shift of these small questions, so he can get comfortable and each time sustain 1 minute longer, 2, 3, 4 minutes. And so we have a poster that says try, fail, learn, try again. So in our household this year, it really was embracing this idea of, hey, I want you to make mistakes. Let's talk about it. And we ask ourselves, could we do anything different? And we don't praise him for getting it right. We praise him for pausing, reflecting, and then trying again. He gets rewards when he tries again, and that builds his ability to be able to do this later on. Can you imagine what he's going to be able to do in high school and later on in life because of some of this explicit like connection?
That's awesome. And I really like that. That poster you that poster you have. I think that's something everyone should have because it isn't always about succeeding. It's how you get there. It's
Mm-hmm.
being resilient. And I really like how you're instilling that in your son young. And then that's something that we all need to instill in our children young, but especially in this world because they're not always going to get everything right away. But they
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to push through to see, to have that hope and faith that they're going to make it through. So that's awesome. And you answered my other questions. You spoke to how this could benefit even a college student. So it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like Ask Miss Ivy is for all age groups. Is that correct?
So we focus primarily on pre-K to 12th grade
Okay.
because the goal is to build that solid foundation. But remember, kids, their goal in life is to learn. And so always the things that we are naming here are applicable to us as adults because I mentioned self-regulation. Well, guess what? That's my goal. I grew up in a family where we didn't talk about emotions and we didn't name how we were feeling. And that was one of the challenges when becoming a parent because remember, kids don't do what we tell them, kids do what we do. And so the more that I saw that, I realized, wow, I need to model. I'm frustrated right now. This is really hard. I'm going to take a breath. And so in our household, we have three ways when it's time to try to de escalate and self regulate. They can do some deep breathing. They can do a butterfly where they'll take a deep breath and blow their wings out. They can do a lion's roar, which is roar, and they make it into a funny sound. And this last one has been a huge hit. It's teddy bear hug. When they are feeling frustrated, they can give a hug and they'll come running over to me and just like squeeze me and immediately I'm de-escalated and they're de-escalated. And again, these are the ways of, hey, I don't want parents to think like, oh my goodness, this huge massive skill. What we do at Ask Miss Ivy is we break it down and say, hey, instead of X, try Y. And so the question would be when we pick up our kids from school or we check in with them on the phone, we normally say, hey, how was your day? What did you do? It's not right. It's not wrong. It's an opportunity for us to connect. Something you could say either in addition or instead would be, what did you do today was hard? How did it feel?
Right.
Did you figure it out? What will you do next time? And I say that example because that's what we're doing with resiliency. So you can pick whatever skill it is and know that these are the bite-sized changes that are going to compound and benefit them both short term and in the long run. So I don't want this to be a huge overhaul because the big thing is it's a lot of information and I don't want folks to feel overwhelmed. I found myself overwhelmed like, oh my goodness, now that I know all this, I need to do all of it. It doesn't work that way. But starting as early, and again, my daughter's 3. I've been doing this with her since she was born. She does household chores. She wants to do everything her brother does, which is so fascinating. But it's so great to see her level of confidence and her level of independence at such an early age. It will get easier as time goes because she knows that it's my responsibility to clean up my plate, to put it in the sink, to clean the table, to put my toys away. And again, these are habits that over time you'll see that will kind of ensure and support her as she becomes an adult.
That's very good. And so just so our listeners and viewers know, when they are using Miss Ivy, is this is this going to be in how we're talking? You're breaking it down for us. You're making it very simple so everyone can understand what can they expect there.
Yes, exciting. So at Ask Miss Ivy, we have two kind of pathways. And the first pathway is next month in September, right in time when school kicks off. I am leading 10 live sessions. And those 10 sessions are aligned to the 10 modules. And that includes screen time, interpreting test scores, home habits, real results. And for each of those modules, I'll lead with about 20 minutes of what the research says, and then practical ways to embed that. And then I'll open it up to have parents ask specific questions, because that's the disconnect. It's not just me saying, hey, here's what the research is. It's to bring your question, the thing that keeps you up at night, or what you really want to kind of like talk through, is to name it in this safe community where we can talk through probably the issues that we're all having as parents.
Right.
And they can sign up for that, and we'll talk through that towards the end of the podcast. And then with that, they can also opt in to one-on-one parent sessions, just like we're having now, where they can bring their specific challenge. And I have different packages, where one could be the clarity session, which is, hey, I have this one problem right now, and I need to solve it. And then we have longer ones called the compass sessions, which will be about 6 months. And that's like building a full plan for your kid. One thing I want to name is, I mentioned I worked in schools. So right now, I currently coach schools. I currently coach school leaders in districts, and I help them identify and create strategic plans. And that gives them clarity on where are they, where do they want to go. Well, guess what? We can do the same thing for our families. And what I mean by that is, hey, you can name what are your goals for your kid this year? What are your goals for your family? And we already know how powerful it is to be intentional and name things and putting it out there in the universe. And then for me to support and walk through, if this is your plan for your child, and I can review some of their test scores, progress reports, anecdotal notes. So like, hey, this is what I'm focusing on for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And so it's so exciting, because I've been piloting this and working with parents, and the response has been, I had no idea. This is so beneficial. I thought that I was doing things wrong. Now I know what to expect. And that's why the first module is called The Truth About How Kids Learn, because constantly we're like comparing our kids to other kids. Is my kid behind? Are they on track? Why can't they read yet? Or how come they don't, they can't figure out this math problem? And it's like, hold on, take a second. I always remind parents this one main thing, and I said it previously, but I reiterate it. Kids are learning. Their job is to go into the world, to test boundaries, to try things, to make mistakes, and they learn at different kind of like places. There are times where, as an educator, as you know, where we may see a problem, we may need to flag it to get additional supports. But I want you to know, parent, what that red flag is, so you don't have to live with this constant state of worry, trying to compare your kid to someone else's. And that's why we ground in a module like that. So excited to really dive in with parents and ensure that they have the confidence and the clarity as we kick off this new school year.
That's awesome. I know we're going to repeat it at the end, and we're also going to have it on our website. But I would like you to talk a little bit about, once a parent finds you, how do they figure out where to actually focus? Which I think you addressed a little bit, but I just want to make sure everyone gets it. But start off with where they can go. So people right now, so they can write it down. Where do they go to find you? And then go into that part for me, please.
That's right. I love it. So the first thing we have is we have a free quiz. And those 10 modules, there are 10 questions. Some are myths and some are truth. And that will kind of give you a head start on, what do I think I know? What do I know? What's real? What's not? And they can go to www.askmissivey.com. That's askmissivey.com. It's a 2-minute quiz. It'll help them just get a sense of kind of where they're going. And then our first live No More Guessing cohort starts in September, and they can go on the website as well. They can sign up for that. We are offering a promo code for all listeners for early 300, EARLY 300 for $50 off. And they're going to be Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. If they happen to miss one, they'll get the full recording. And the best part of this, they'll have a one pager that's actionable. So again, it's not just, oh, this is what research says. It's here's what research says. Here are the practical things that you can do to implement this, and almost serves as a checklist and kind of those key things. And that's what we've seen has been empowering for parents, because now that they know, they can do something about it again based on their goals for their family.
Awesome. Very, very good. So if you've given us so much information. After I talked to you the first time, I actually went ahead and my daughter was coming home from school, and normally I say, "How was your day?" Which, like you said, there's nothing wrong with saying that. Did you meet anyone new? But I asked her, I asked her, did she have any challenges? Did she overcome anything? I changed the conversation like you had suggested, and I got a different response. And it
Yeah.
also caused my daughter to think a little bit. What did I overcome today? And when she said, you know what, Mom, this went on, but what did you do? And this is what she did. Awesome. That's a great job. And sometimes it just points out what your children are doing right, things that they don't even think about. So, what I appreciate about Ask Miss Ivey is you can rethink things. It gives you another perspective so that you can help your children. And it gave me another opportunity to say to my child, good job. Because many
Yes.
times we're so caught up in the day to day. We're caught up sometimes with the younger kids. Don't do this, or look at this, or be doing this. We don't think about all the ways that they need to be praised.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the reasons why is that there is so much. Like there feels like there is so much to do, and that was intentional with Ask Miss Ivey. And we're not adding more; we're just shifting some practices. And then when you work with me, I'm not going to have the 10 modules you need to do all. We narrow it down. You have one or two that we are focusing on, because that's what we know about what I have experience with both child development and an adult learning theory. And so really being able to make sure that we are not walking away feeling like, oh my goodness, this is so hard, but we feel empowered and we have clarity on where we are and where we want to go.
Awesome. So, as we're coming down to the end of this podcast, tell us again, where do we go for Miss Ivey? Give us the code, and what we're also going to do. We're going to put it on the Bear Sheet website. It'll also be on. It'll be in YouTube if you're watching it back on there, so that you can get the benefits. So, tell us one more time, please.
Love it. Parents, I would love to talk to you. Please go to www.askmsivey.com. That's askmissivey.com. Take the free quiz, sign up for the modules, and looking forward to joining you on this journey.
Okay, awesome. Now, if you could give our listeners, viewers, because we're recording this time as well, just one thing real quick that they could take with them if they just one thing they could apply today. Could you quickly give us that before we head on out with this broadcast?
One thing I want you to know is you're doing a great job, and kids don't do what we tell them. So if you want to pick one thing that you want them to be able to emulate, you have to practice it and model it. And one of them was, I had talked to a parent. I'm like, has your child ever seen you do anything hard? And he was like, no, I never thought about that. I was like, naming that it will be a game changer, because they will mimic and do what you do.
Awesome. Thank you for that. If today's conversation gave you clarity or encouraged you in some way, we invite you to connect with us at bearsheetcorporation.org. Remember to connect with Ms. Ivey. We'll put her information on the site. You can also email info@bearsheetcorporation.org or call us at 844-405-3924. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for more conversations focused on building stability, preserving legacy, and strengthening the communities we call home. Thank you, Betty, for spending this time with us today. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for doing the same. Have a great day.